and he's going to come and bring us a presentation on Cedarville and the Civil War.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm really happy to be here. This is really awesome to see that the Historical Society has really taken off. I want to say since my departure, but since I've moved on, you guys have really taken off. And Joe, this is such a treat to see. It's better than anything I probably could have done. You've really handled this beautifully. And I'm proud to be here, and I'm very proud of you for doing what you've done with the place. So, hey, behind every man is a great one, right? So,
Right here, Carmella.
Of course, as well. Sure, everybody.
We bring the stuff and say, Carmella, find a place for it, and she does.
That's wonderful. I'm glad you guys are working together. I'm glad this is really going forward rather than sort of, doing what it could do. All right, anyway, let me get to Cedarville and Civil War. Start over here. All right. So before I start, I participated in the filming of a movie that will be out in the Hallmark Channel, I think around Christmas time. It'll be called Gettysburg, 1863. It is about the town after the battle, like sort of the footprint of the battle in town. There's a love story involved, hence Hallmark. I don't really know a whole lot about it. The guy who, there's an actor by the name of Bo Brinkman, who is, he's famous in the Civil War circles for being an actor in the movie Gettysburg. He's Major Taylor. He's Robert E. Lee's personal aide in the movie. He's on screen quite a bit in the film. Everybody knows him. And that's me and him, guy laughing. I actually said the line that everybody sort of knows him by, and he was, anyway. That's him. This is the street of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This is not 1863, this is 2025. Last October we went down there. They shut down the main drag in town. They covered one of the streets with 8 inches of dirt, packed it down. They shut the whole thing down to look like it would have in 1863. Except they forgot to remove a window air conditioning unit, and boy oh boy did the internet have a fiasco now. But here you can see the big green screen, all the cool stuff, all the people, all the extras. We did a scene where we were marching through town, sort of as Lincoln came to what is now known as Remembrance Day to give the Gettysburg Address. There was a scene that we were proceeding through town. There was another one where we were portraying soldiers during the battle, fighting through town. That was kind of cool. I've never done that. Fired my musket right down Baltimore Street in Gettysburg. So participated in the filming of that. It was the easiest $300 I ever made in my life. I also got blown up by a special effects air pot. That was cool. Again, had to pay, I guess, but it was a really interesting experience. I got to sit right on the street in Gettysburg and drink Coke and eat chips and have a nice catered meal from a film company, and then pop my gun a couple of times and walk away with a check in my pocket. But check it out. Hallmark is coming out. Like I said, I think at the end of the year it'll be on TV. You can find it. I think it's out on YouTube. It was the first trailer.
I saw the trailer.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm in it. I don't know if I made the final cut. Like I said, I was in the front rank. I got blown up, so maybe. But that was my latest Civil War journey. All right, so let's continue. Big fight from a small town, Cedarville and Civil War. This is Cedarville as it would have looked in 1860. That's the census map. You can go on Google and type in Cedarville, New Jersey, map 1860, and you'll find the 1840 map, the 1860 map, the 1878 map, and it has all the names of the occupants or the men who owned the homes. They have all the names right there, so you can see. If I could really blow this up, you would be able to see some of the men in that photo on the table. Their homes are here in Cedarville. One of those guys was a carpenter, and I would bet my house that his handwork still exists in town. In somebody's house somewhere. So the Civil War will kick off because of the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860. The South doesn't like that a radical Republican was just voted in as the president, and he's elected. A large part of it is due to the Wide Awake movement, which is an abolitionist movement. You could see parallels to things now with this wide awake movement and how they organized and presented themselves. And a lot of those people will, when the call for volunteers goes up, the wide awakes will be the first ones to really sign up. But to talk about the election itself, Lincoln will win 4 of the 7 electoral votes from New Jersey. Back then, the electoral college worked a lot differently. You voted for people like representatives or delegates rather than just a person, like the president. So Lincoln won 4 of these 7 electoral votes. He will actually lose New Jersey twice, in 1860 and 1864. He'll lose New Jersey. But Cumberland County will have a majority of votes go for Lincoln. 68% of the people who can vote at the time, who were all property-owning men, voted in the election, voted for Lincoln. There were 142 homes and domiciles in Cedarville at the time, so probably 130 people were able to vote, and from there, it's probably an equal representation, probably about 68 to 70% of people voted for Lincoln. And like I said, he'll lose the vote for New Jersey both times, in 60 and 64. I believe the reason he loses New Jersey in 64 is because New Jersey doesn't allow mail-in ballots during the war. It's the only state in the Union that does not allow mail-in ballots. Instead they relied on the furlough system. So 2 men from each company of each regiment were allowed to go home and vote during the 1860 election. So if thousands of men were able to write in and vote for Lincoln in 1864, probably would have won. Probably would have won New Jersey, which went to George McClellan, an army general that he'll have a lot of problems with. But let's continue. Let's get right into Cedarville. Cedarville responds to the call. This is a photo of a militia company that is raised up in some town somewhere, and I just grabbed the photo for this for the effect. This article here is published in this West Jersey Pioneer, which is out of Bridgeton. This is September 7th, 1861. The firing on Fort Sumter has happened, and the Battle of First Manassas has happened. And there's no real presence of New Jersey at Manassas other than a militia brigade that's picking blackberries during the battle. They don't fight at all. They say a lot of guys, where are you going? No. So the article reads as this. The Cedarville Home Guards are making rapid progress in their drill exercises. They are now among the most proficient companies in the county. They number about 80, and a large number of them drill every Saturday in R.D. Bateman's Hall, which a lot of you know where it was, and in the open field there. Their uniforms are gray jackets and pants with blue caps, which make for a very good appearance. Their commissioned officers are Joshua D. Fithian, Lemuel Bateman, the first lieutenant, and Joseph Bateman, the second lieutenant. The company expects to receive many muskets from Trenton, which were Colt pattern rifles made from the Colt Armory. They're real small rifles. You can find them every once in a while. They pop up on like road shows or gun shows. They're really neat. They're really neat find. Let me continue. Expect to receive good muskets from Trenton and contemplate visiting Bridgeton at no distant day. We hope we hope our citizens, we know our citizens would give them a hearty welcome. Many men, that's the end of the article. Many of the guys, the 80 men who are in the Home Guard will most certainly enlist that fall for 3 years services, including those guys who I'll get into them later. So to sort of go over to the men over here on the photograph on the table, they will spend their first winter at a place called Lower Potomac, Maryland, which is on the eastern panhandle's western shore, like sort of on the Virginia side. It looks over to now what is Quantico Bay, Virginia, where the Marine Corps base is. This drawing here was drawn by a guy from another regiment that would serve with these men. His name is Alfred Beller. And this is the huts that these guys would stay in. They would take these Sibley tents, the things that you see on top, and they would fortify them with trees or any sort of building branches and whatnot, and make more of a sturdy hut to survive the winter. The man here is pictured as a colonel, but this was the guys from Cedarville this company over here. This is their captain. His name is John Howard Willits. He was a physician before the war. He would actually attend West Point and fail out. But when he attended West Point, the superintendent of West Point was none other than Robert E. Lee. These 5 men will write a letter home. They'll include some friends of theirs in that letter, but they will write about the box that they received from home. And the box that they get is a big morale boost, right? It's a lot of stuff that they say Uncle Sam does not provide. It includes chicken, sausages, cake, bread, candles, writing stuff to write letters with, all sorts of stuff, like I said, that the government just doesn't give you. And then they get a turkey in this package, which they give to the esteemed J. Howard Willits. And he will take such a liking to these guys, I know that during their first battle, which is the Battle of Williamsburg, which I'll get to shortly, he's right with these guys, like the whole time. He talks about Elmer Ogden's death. He talks about his lieutenant being shot out from under him. Willits himself would be struck 5 times that day, but none of them were fatal. He's shot in the chest, he's shot in the foot, he's shot in the arm, he's shot in all places, but nothing penetrates his body. He'll also say of the 28 men, of the 27 men that are in his company at that battle, only 9 come out unscathed. In that photo, like I said, I'll get to the next slide. Oh, did I? Yeah. We'll get back to that one. We'll get back to the boys from Cedarville. Or this photo, this group of guys from Cedarville. Next on the list, the first guy that I'd like to talk about is Charles Ogden. This is one that I found completely by accident. I was going through some of the scrapbooks that are housed here, and they're all what's the word for them? Ledger books. They're all ledger books from the 1830s and 40s and 50s that have these newspaper articles glued into them. And you can see all the cool handwriting behind it, but all the articles they range through all sorts of ages. But somebody was really into the Civil War at some point and said, I got to include all this stuff together. And in that are these letters from Charles Ogden. Charles Ogden is born May 4th, 1835, and at some point he goes out to Illinois. I used to think it was for a girl, but finding that he was unwed and no children, I don't know why he moved out to Illinois from Cedarville. But that's where he is when the war breaks out. He enlists in the 17th Illinois Volunteers, and he will wear this photo is a soldier from that regiment, so this is what he would have looked like a little bit. The state jacket, the conversion smoothbore musket, the old style canteen. They didn't wear the soft caps like those guys are wearing. They wore civilian hats that were pinned up on the side. There are some photographs of guys with like ornate cords and whatnot in their hats. But Ogden will enlist in May of 1861 in the 17th Illinois. And he will see action at places like Fredericktown, which is a place I never heard of, but he writes from there. He sees action at Fort Henry and Fort Donelson, where he writes about, which took place on Valentine's Day, and he talks about sharpshooters exchanging Valentines. He will later see the Battle of Shiloh, which he writes about 3 or 4 times. And every time he talks about it, he talks about how much more he hates Ohio troops because they're just not good soldiers every single time. I don't know what it was, he just hated guys from Ohio. But he will see the Battle of Shiloh, which is April 5th and 6th, 1862. When that battle is finished, 21,000 Americans will be killed or wounded, and at that point, there will be more Americans killed or wounded in those 2 days of fighting than every battle and war that happened before that point. From the American Revolution all the way to April 4th, 1862, 21,000 Americans had not fallen on a single field until Shiloh. It is a major catastrophic event. The nation is blown away by this news. Oh my God, how could this happen? All these people. Well, that's what happens when 2 huge armies just collide with each other and just beat the snot out of one another. His accounts of Shiloh are amazing. I've shared them with people, historians, and they're like, whoa, this is some really good stuff. He writes about how they reluctantly fall back on the first day's fighting, and how on April 7th, the second day's fighting, he says that we had him from the word go. Basically, the Union Army counterattacks and just pushes the Confederate Army off the field. There is a standing fight, but he says they had him from the word go. He'll see service elsewhere throughout western Tennessee, and one of his letters he writes about how he jumped on the opportunity to be the company cook because it gets him out of all the guard duty and all the other soldierly stuff that sucks. So he cooks for his men because he wants to take care of them. And but he does say, when there's a skirmish or when there's a battle's coming, he's like, I get right into the ranks, I'm with my boys. And then later, the 17th Illinois will follow Ulysses S. Grant. Like I said, he's at Fort Donelson, where Grant will earn the name unconditional surrender, because that's what he demands from the Confederates holding Fort Donelson. He will be with Grant when he earns his name, and he will follow him all the way to Vicksburg, Mississippi, which there will be, I think is very interesting. There are men that fight both at Gettysburg, July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Pennsylvania, and there's a guy from Cedarville all the way, well, not all the way, but halfway across the country in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and it falls on July 4th. Cedarville's at the two of the biggest moments in the Civil War period. After the war, Ogden makes it through. He will find his way out to Des Moines, Iowa, where he is a hotel keeper, and then he will find his way out later in life in 1897 out to Woodward, Iowa, which is in Dallas County, and he passes away at the age of 62 in 1897. Like I said, he's writing these letters to somebody back home in Cedarville, and the stuff that he writes about is just, it's Civil War nerd gold. It's incredible. This photograph here on the top right corner is a photo of the 17th, right before they muster out, and Charles Ogden is somewhere in that picture. Okay, to take sort of a more blue turn here, I'm going to talk about Nathaniel, Edgar, and their sister Phoebe Wilkinson. That's how she spells it. I know that's not how it's spelled, that's how they spelled it in the letter. Edgar is the oldest son, and then it's Nathaniel and Phoebe. Edgar pens a letter on May 4th, 1862. They enlisted, they were probably drilling with the men, the Cedarville men in 1861, and in 1862, they're in the 6th New Jersey Volunteers, and they're at the Siege of Yorktown, May 4th. The Confederates skedaddle out of Yorktown. Now, if y'all are hearing Yorktown, right, that's where the Revolution is, it's a big part there. And of course, the Confederates are in some of the same earthworks that the rebels and the British and the French are using, prior to that. So Edgar will write that Yorktown will be remembered as a rebel racecourse rather than a battlefield. And I find this very interesting because he's writing this knowing a very small window of the war. Literally like the very opening stages. At that point, there's no idea that the war will be, will cost 600, almost 700,000 Americans in 4 years' time. He writes about how the Confederates won't even come out of the works to engage them, and that how the Confederate Army flees before the Grand Yankee Wizard. The Grand Yankee Professor. He's talking about George McClellan, who turned out to be not that guy. Edgar and Nathaniel are shoulder to shoulder in the marching column up from Yorktown into Williamsburg, where they talk about seeing a balloon, which is one of the first times that this new technology is used. These balloons are being used as observation, right? But they can't really send a signal down directly, and they're kind of hard to control, but they got them, and they're there. I conferred Edgar's account with a historian down in Williamsburg who's been trying to nail down that the Union Army brought a balloon with them from Yorktown to Williamsburg, and the Cedarville boy proved it. Nathaniel will take over the letter because Edgar is killed the next day at the Battle of Williamsburg, May 5th, 1862. That's where these guys first see battle. That's where J. Howard Willets will see action. Edgar is killed while the regiment is posted along the fence line, and Nathaniel will write that the splinters of the fence rail flew like freshly mown grass. These guys were close, real close to one another. I've been down to the Bloody Ravine in Williamsburg where this action takes place, and there is no way that these guys were any further than door to back wall, and for hours. Mostly because of the terrain and the vegetation of the Bloody Ravine. And again, they're using those smoothbore muskets. There is a sword in a museum down there from a colonel from Mississippi, and it's got dents and dings from 69 caliber round ball all over it, and that's Jersey bucking ball all over that guy's saber. Maybe one of our boys got it. I don't know. But so Edgar will be killed, and then I have overwhelming evidence of Confederate soldiers looting bodies after the Battle of Williamsburg, doing everything from looting the dead to making wounded men just straight up murdering with bayonets and Bowie knives. Benjamin Ogden, who's sitting in the top right corner, he'll write about finding men with bullet wounds in their arms and Bowie knife thrusts in their chest, and their pockets turned and their rings gone, and also they even looted their own dead apparently. But Edgar's body, I believe, is left on the field because the action flows around and all the regiments are all over the place. Edgar's body is probably looted by Confederates. I have no evidence to state that exactly, but I have evidence that Elmer Ogden, who's killed in that photograph, his body was looted. The only thing they left on him was gloves and the clothes he was wearing. Edgar is moved from the Williamsburg battlefield and brought back to New Jersey. After that, I have no idea where he went. There's a lot of guys that made it back from Williamsburg up to Cape May County, and they just got buried somewhere. There's a Presbyterian church down by the Cold Springs Village where there's a couple of 7th New Jersey veterans there. 2 of them are killed in Williamsburg, and I think they're probably buried in the woods somewhere in an unmarked grave. That's the best of my conclusion. But let me get that. Let me move this over here to the Wilkinsons. Okay. They will. So Nathaniel, the oldest, or the middle brother, will serve with the regiment. He'll fight at Gettysburg. If you go to the Gettysburg battlefield, their monument, the 6th New Jersey Monument, is a place called the Valley of Death, which is between Devil's Den and Little Round Top, which is not a great place to be. The 6th New Jersey was sent in to try and save some guns from being overrun, some artillery pieces that were being overrun by Confederates, and they had to fight going in and they got to fight going out. And Nathaniel Wilkinson was right there, and he probably had a very terrible day because in November of 1863, he's transferred, probably after he recovers from whatever, maybe he's wounded in Gettysburg, I don't know, but he's transferred over to what is known as the Veterans Reserve Corps, which is where they take guys and basically just say, you guard forts and trains. Thank you for your service. He will leave the army when his term runs out in 1864. Phoebe, however, Phoebe Wilkinson will go on to marry a guy named Hannibal Clark Perry in 1868, and they will move to Salem, New Jersey, and they will have, their children will be Lydia, Joseph, Eliza, Margaret, Luella, Georgina, Edgar, and Mary and Herbert. Yeah, that's a lot of people. And like I said, she lives down in Salem. She will pass away in 1903 at the age of 56. Yes, so if you notice that one of the children's names was Edgar. The brother Nathaniel will also have several children throughout his life. They will both name their children after their slain older brother. Nathaniel Wilkinson is buried right at the stone church or the brick church right here in town. He's got a veteran's flag and marker right in his headstone. His headstone is clearly removed. Where next? I'll move the pictures here. Okay, so back to Williamsburg. Williamsburg battlefield, again, it's a place a lot of people know is colonial Williamsburg, whatever. There is a ton of Civil War history down in colonial Williamsburg, and even outside of Williamsburg, particularly the Williamsburg battlefield, like I was talking about. The Bloody Ravine, which is where New Jersey men will fight and fall. And recently, a couple of years ago, an organization known as the American Battlefield Trust preserved the Bloody Ravine so you and I can go there forever. The ground around it is being encroached, mostly by like bush gardens, which you can actually, there's parts of the battlefield, if you walk to, you can find where it is. There's parts of the battlefield where you can see the roller coasters in the distance. I worked with an organization called Old Baldy Civil War Roundtable. There are a bunch of Civil War nerds from New Jersey who just love to talk about the Civil War, and I was introduced to them, and they were working on a project about putting a marker down at the Williamsburg battlefield. They just didn't have like the stuff to put in it, like the picture and the words for it, the accounts for it. A friend of mine put me in touch with them, and we collaborated, and now there is a sign on the Williamsburg battlefield that has images and quotes from Cedarville. So Cedarville, the sign is from an organization called Civil War Trails. Civil War Trails is the largest open-air museum in the world, and Cedarville is now booknoted in that museum. I went down there on the day of the battle a couple of years ago. I think it was 2024. I went down. The Battle of Williamsburg was fought in a pouring rainstorm all day long. We went down there for that day, and it was gorgeous. It was kind of upsetting. I wanted a rainstorm. I was wearing a uniform, what these guys were wearing, minus the overcoat. I had it with me to trudge through the ravine. It was like 82 degrees. It was wild. But an incredible experience to work with them and to be a part of that, and to have this small little town now part of, like I said, the world's largest outdoor museum. Back to Cedarville. Ann Gandy and the Soldiers Relief Society of Cedarville. They picked this up in response to the Battle of Fredericksburg, which I'll get to later. Fredericksburg is terrible for the North. Specifically, the town of Bridgeton raises a lot of men, and Cumberland County as a whole raises a regiment, the 24th New Jersey, and the effects of the battle on those men and on this community, the Cumberland County as a whole, are incredible. So in response to that, Ann Gandy and her husband George will start the Soldiers Relief Aid Society in Cedarville. They talk about having about the things that they send. Here we have 2 boxes of hospital clothing, 1 box of canned fruit, 1 box of rusk. Does anyone know what rusk is? Okay, have you ever had a biscotti? You know how it's like it's a cookie that's hard? Okay, rusk is just bread that's baked, cut into chunks, and then baked again. Just a preservation method. It's probably meant more for dunking in coffee or tea rather than just trying to gnaw. It's way better than the hardtack crackers sitting on the table, I can tell you that much. So they will write that they will send these boxes valued at $80, and then they send it off to the Aid Society in Philadelphia, and they send another box of clothing and dried fruit to Mr. Alvin Quartermaster's 2nd Ward Newark Hospital to be distributed among the destitute and wounded. Like I said, Battle of Fredericksburg is terrible, and a lot of those guys are immediately evacuated to all over the north: Newark, Trenton, Philadelphia, Newark, New York City. They're all flooded with wounded from this battle. This isn't the only time that they will publish their findings or what they give to the men. Everything from shirts to blankets, they sew mattresses to be stuffed with hay or feathers or whatever, pillows, socks, all sorts of stuff that unfortunately, when men were wounded at this time, if you and I were wearing whatever clothing we were wearing, and your pants were torn up, or your shirt was torn up, or whatever, they cut that off of you. They didn't have something to give you. There were men in hospitals that were basically like naked, wrapped in blankets until somebody came along out of the good graces to give them the stuff that they needed. Unless they could have a friend bring them, hey, I was at the quartermaster and I got an extra shirt, got extra trousers, here you go. Other than that, they were sort of on their own, and it took the efforts of organizations like the Christian Commission or the Sanitation Commission to come in and help these guys because nobody else did. And like I said, they brought all sorts of boxes, all sorts of goodies from these guys to help out. I lost the other article that had like an itemized thing, like the amount of shirts, the amount of blankets, all this stuff. And again, all this stuff over there, there's piles of shirts and a blanket and blankets and stuff, just to sort of show you like, this is what it may have looked like. this is some of the stuff that they may have sent. They also talk about a Christmas Eve and Christmas Day fair that they're going to have at R.D. Bateman's Hall. The admission price is 10 cents a ticket. And like I said, it's to replenish their funds so they can send more stuff to more men because, like I've said a few times, Fredericksburg is terrible. And yeah, this community and the community around us will suffer through that and have to come together. Which brings me to my next person I'll talk about, Assistant Surgeon Robert Bateman. This photograph is actually housed in the society. I have the book at home that it's in, and I forgot to bring it. I've had it for a while. I've been meaning to take this back, please. So I will do that expediently. But Robert Bateman, this is a photograph of him. That's his handwriting right below it. Your true friend, or your truly friend, something. Robert and Bateman. Robert Bateman is, like I said, an assistant surgeon. He's not the guy cutting off your leg. He's the guy who was probably putting on the tourniquet, handing the surgeon all the stuff, or if the surgeon may have been a little bit under the ether or under the whiskey, he was the one doing it. Bateman was born on September 14, 1836. And in 1859, he marries Cornelia Horner Bateman. She's listed as Cornelia Bateman. And y'all stop marrying your cousins. So they married. He is commissioned officer October 15th, 1862. And he signs up for 9 months of service. That's what the 25th will do. In the summer of 1862, the war isn't going so well in the East. And New Jersey has to answer another call for volunteers, and they meet Lincoln in the middle and say, we'll give you a bunch of 9-month guys. And the 23rd, 24th, 25th, 27th, a bunch of regiments all go and join the Union Army, and they're in this Fredericksburg, the Battle of Fredericksburg, which is in Virginia. They'll see the Battle of Chancellorsville. Some of them will, not Bateman. And then 3 days before the Battle of Gettysburg, they're let go. Bye, turns up, go home. We're going to go fight the largest battle of North America, but y'all get to go home. So Bateman will see his first action down in Fredericksburg. He'll be attached to what is known as the Union Army 9th Corps, which was commanded by General Ambrose Burnside. If anybody's ever seen the guy with the big Burnside mutton chops, that's him. Old Bird, as they call him. He was apparently a very jolly fellow. So the 25th to the 9th Corps at Fredericksburg. The Battle of Fredericksburg is, by all standards, a debacle. It is the one wing of the battle goes pretty well for the Union until it doesn't, and then the fighting through town and up to the Mary's Heights, where you can still visit today. It was terrible for the Union Army. It's the first time that the United States Army will have to fight in urban conflict, house-to-house fighting. They'll fight right through Caroline Street, right down Fauquier Street. They'll fight right through downtown Fredericksburg. And it's terrible. It's depicted in the movie Gods and Generals. Watch it with a little grain of salt, actually a lot of salt. But it shows you what was going on in that town. The Union will attack, like I said, Mary's Heights. They will send wave after wave after wave after wave of unsupported Union soldiers across an open field that days before Confederate artillerymen had marked out the distance in the field to know 500 yards, 400 yards, 300 yards, 200 yards. And there were Confederates that said a chicken could not survive on that field. Private Benjamin Borton from Woodstown will refer to the Union position on Mary's Heights as the dead line. Which his account thinking about it, puts the hair on my arm to stand up. It was atrocious. Burnside sees these actions going on at Fredericksburg. He knows what's happening, he sees these attacks, and he wants to, the next day, personally lead the 9th Corps, his personal command, across the Rappahannock into Fredericksburg and up Mary's Heights. His generals tell him that's a really bad idea because you're just going to repeat what had happened. Well, the 9th Corps, parts of the 9th Corps go into Fredericksburg where men are wounded, shot at, pop shots and artillery hit them, and that's where this guy, Private Benjamin Sockwell, is wounded in the leg, and Robert Bateman will undoubtedly assist in the amputation of his leg. Here is a Civil War surgeon's kit, or one of many that were available. Notice the large saw. Notice the crude tools and things that you would see in like a Freddy Krueger movie. There's also, they didn't know about germs. Germ theory was after the war, so they didn't know about that. So Bateman will assist in the amputation of Sockwell's leg. Sockwell, a Cedarville boy, as most of his company were. Sockwell will live the rest of his life down here in Cedarville. He's buried at the Brick Church Cemetery. The old, the cemetery. Bateman will return home. He'll have 5 children with his wife, and then she will pass away. He'll remarry a woman named Louisa Lawrence Goff in 1876. And unfortunately, 2 years later, he will pass away in 1878 at the age of 41. Of what I don't know, probably something like typhoid or smallpox or something. Being a physician down here, he's probably dealing with a lot of illnesses and whatnot. That would be my guess. Maybe that was it. He was done. I don't know how he passed, but he is, again, buried. This is his headstone right in that same cemetery, yards from Sockwell, yards from just where these men are buried over here. Well, I should say some of them are buried. And he will be a member of Grand Army of the Republic Post number 60, which is right here in Cedarville. I'll get to that later. Don't want to spoil too much for you. All right, the meat of my presentation. Medal of Honor winner, quarter gunner, John C. Davis, United States Navy. John Davis is born in 1821 in Finland, which is at that point was under the rule of the Russian Empire, which controlled 1/10 of the landmass on the planet. Davis and his family will move from Finland to Cedarville. I don't know when, but they will move here. And at 40 years old, he's going to enlist in the Union Navy. I think he was already. I tried very hard to find all sorts of information about this guy that I'm able to find about everybody else, and I could not for the life of me find any real solid evidence other than when he enlisted, when he won his Medal of Honor, and when he died. Davis will join the Navy. He'll be a quarter gunner, which he ran one of the big guns on the ship that he was on, known as the USS Valley City, that you can see right here. This is a pre-war drawing of the ship. During the war, it's commissioned or just sort of taken by the United States government. They throw a bunch of iron slabs and guns on it, and they send it down to North Carolina, where Ambrose Burnside, the guy I was just talking about, is conducting what is known as his Carolinas campaign. They just fought the Battle of Roanoke, March 9th, 1862. No, I'm sorry. It's in early February 9th, I believe, February 8th. It's before this. So they fight the Battle of Roanoke. The people in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, can hear the Battle of Roanoke, and they know that the Union behemoth is coming for them. The next day, the Union Navy rolls in, and the Confederate forts and ships start firing at the Union Navy, right? So John Davis and his crew are firing and fighting on the ship, and a Confederate shell, I'll stop right there, and I will read you John Davis's Medal of Honor citation. Before I do that, I'll just say this. One of the quickest ways to earn a Medal of Honor is to jump on a grenade, then save your buddies. Leave it to a boy from Cedarville to jump on a barrel of gunpowder. Here is his Medal of Honor citation. Elizabeth City, North Carolina, February 10th, 1862. Elizabeth City served on board the USS Valley City during the action against rebel forts and batteries and ships off of Elizabeth City, February 10th, 1862. When a shell from the shore penetrated the side and passed through the magazine, exploding outside the screen on the berth decks, several power divisions protecting the bulkheads were torn to pieces, and the forward part of the berth deck was set on fire. Showing great presence of mind, Davis courageously covered a barrel of powder with his own body to prevent explosion, while at the same time passing powder to provide the division on the upper deck, while of course under fierce fire. This is a drawing of Davis. This is I went to find something about him. Somebody else went on a whole dive about the action. It wasn't about him particularly, like his wife before the war, but it's all about the Battle of Elizabeth City, all about the ships that are engaged there. And this drawing of John, you can see him sitting with his arm covered, or his face covered, sitting on the barrel, the light of the fire, lighting the room. He did not flinch. He sat there. He was probably got burnt up. He will heal from his wounds and return to service. He joins what is called the Brown Water Navy. They're the Navy that comes out of Illinois and goes into Tennessee, the more on like riverboats. Where on the deck of, the USS, he's on board the USS Choctaw in 1863. I found a photo and then I lost it. It is an ugly looking double paddle wheel, flat to the water, iron-sided ship. It looks, if you saw it coming, I was like kind of freaked out looking at the picture of it. Imagine this thing rolling down the river. You'd be like, what is this behemoth coming at? He's on the deck of the Choctaw where he's given the Medal of Honor. Now, the Medal of Honor during the war was not a congressional thing. Although he is on the Congressional Medal of Honor website, it's all been given the citation. The Civil War, you got a Medal of Honor for like capturing a flag, or taking an officer prisoner, or helping a wounded officer to the rear, or in the case of a Maine regiment, re-enlisted, where 870 guys all at once got the Medal of Honor for re-enlisted. Those were rescinded, I promise. So he's on board the Choctaw, where he's given his Medal of Honor. Unfortunately, in November of 1863, he's sent to New York City to recover from typhoid, where he passes November 17, 1863, and is buried at Cypress Hill National Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York. Maybe there's a way to bring him home. Maybe there's a way to have a stone here, something to honor him. I heard there's a veterans park that's coming. I'll just leave it at that. You guys do things after that. But yeah, it's interesting to me that the soldier of the highest, that wins the nation's highest honor, was an immigrant. I believe his family's still here. I talked to Chris Davis, the guy who works at the dump. I was trying to get him out here. I said, Chris, I think your ancestor did some pretty crazy things. But yeah, leave it to a Cedarville boy to jump on a pile of gunpowder to save his buddies. Which he did, and I'm sure the men loved him for it. The rank of quarter gunner is an eagle with this anchor. It's still sort of the same, a little modernized. Now their signs are a little different. But this is an original Civil War quarter gunner insignia. I think John Davis was a big deal on his boat before the action, and then I'm sure afterwards everybody was like, Big John. Yeah. All right, now we'll go to the end of the war, after the war, memory. Grand Army of the Republic in Cedarville. The Grand Army of the Republic was, it's not a Star Wars thing, it's a thing in there. No, the Grand Army of the Republic is a veterans organization. It predates the VFW, predates the Foreign Legion, predates everything. The Grand Army of the Republic was a very proud organization. These guys gathered all the time, everywhere. I actually have two Grand Army of the Republic ribbons there on the table. I think they belong to a guy from the Cumberland Grays, or had to have been from a different unit. But if we go over there, if somebody wants to see them, talk about them, I'll tell you all about them. But the Grand Army of the Republic, again, very patriotic. A lot of these guys in World War I write to newspapers about their life. If I had it in me, I'd be listening right back up with them. No, Grandpa, go sit down. This is a photo. This is a photo of the Bateman's Hall, where prior to the war, the men were here drilling in the building and on the field. And then after the war, it's where the veterans will come to reminisce and share war stories. And you weren't at the angle I was. You weren't at Spotsylvania. I was. all happened right there. This photograph of veterans is from the New Jersey Sons of Union Veterans website. I couldn't find anything from Cedarville guys or even Bridgeton guys, although I have seen photos. There are photos here of Bridgeton GAR guys. These guys are from Elmer. I don't know who the boy is, but these guys are all Elmer residents at the time of this photo. And if you go into the only cemetery there in Elmer, you'll see all the graves, and I'm sure it's all these guys. I actually think there was a photo, there was a second photo of this and had everybody's name. I should have grabbed that, but it would be relevant. But I love this wartime newspaper clipping that these guys, it gets my blood going every time I hear it. So I'll just say it to you guys. And this is an emotion I'm sure they were sensitive that they carried as well. Bearing the flag of our Union, coupled with the ensign of our state, and as Jerseymen, we pledge you our word that neither shall fall or the blood of Jerseymen can save you. These guys thought that the spirit of the Jersey Blues of '76 were right there with them in '61, and I tell you, both sides thought it was, but I'll tell you what, these dudes believed it, and they carried that spirit all the way to '65, all the way to the end, and they loved being a part of this. They loved their service, and these guys, I don't know where I was going with that. I'll stop there. The other photograph on the far right is from Robert Bateman's grave. The little star that you see there, that is the signifier of a Civil War veteran. If you look real close, it says GAR Post 60, which was for Sergeant Albert Bateman, which was from a guy from Cedarville that this post was named after. Bateman, which was friends with these guys and named in that article that I talked about earlier. Albert Bateman is born March 31st, 1840, and enlists in Company H of the 7th New Jersey. He is wounded at Williamsburg. He advances through the ranks and becomes a corporal during the war. He becomes a sergeant when Joseph Burt passes away in 1863. And then he's with the regiment until it musters out in 1864. He fights, I believe he's present at the Battle of Gettysburg, as well as Charles Ogden and some of those other guys. The 7th New Jersey has a real bad day, just like the rest of the Army at Gettysburg. July 2nd, they have a real bad day. The regiment advances. And then Bigelow's artillery battery, I forget what state they're from, I think they're New Yorkers. Bigelow's battery comes through at the Double Quick, being chased by Mississippians, and they come through and cut the 7th in half because the horses and the artillery coming through, the guys make a hole. There's a left wing and a right wing of the 7th. The right wing kind of starts to drift away because they see this big angry mob of Mississippians coming towards them, led by General Barksdale. And the left half of the 7th advances at the Double Quick, stops, fires one volley, quote, at the dirty slouch hats, and then run away. Bateman was there, and he's with the regiment till the end of their service. Company H gets rolled into with Company A, which is like the real famous company of the 7th. If anybody reads about the 7th New Jersey, Company A was it. They were the guys. Whatever. Company H is where it's at. Company D is another story. But anyway, Albert Bateman, he'll take over Joseph Burke's spot when he passes, and then he musters out with the regiment on October 10th, 1864. However, he will pass in 1878 at 38 years old. And he's buried at the Broad Street Cemetery in Bridgeton, a real big old brick church that's sort of on the corner there with a big, huge iron gate. It's where the Revolutionary War General James Giles is buried, who he had personal interactions with George Washington. And then on the opposite corner, with the big bronze cannon monument, is the only integrated Grand Army of the Republic cemetery in the state of New Jersey, where white soldiers and black soldiers are buried right next to each other. It's the only one in the state. You find all the other GAR cemeteries, and it's a group of this guys over there and a group of these guys over there. They fought to free them. That's a whole other post-war story about all of that. But Bridgeton was very involved with all that stuff, and to see that these men wanted to remember one of their comrades while he was still alive. He was there. They opened the hall in Oh, it was chartered in 1872, and they took the name, they named it after Albert Bateman. He must have been a popular guy. You know what I mean? They named it after him. He'll pass in 1878, and then it is, their last proceeding takes place at Bateman's Hall in 1896, and then I think all those guys sort of roll over into, they probably split between Millville and Bridgeton. Like I said, there's a photo of a Bridgeton GAR post, very cool to see. I don't know who any of those guys are, but it's probably a lot of Cedarville boys in there. But yeah, so now we'll conclude my presentation. You can go into any cemetery down here and walk around and find veterans from a lot of those. I mean, even Cedarville, you've got them from I don't know if there's anybody from the Revolution. But right down the road at the church in Fairton, there's guys there who fought in the Revolution. There's a guy, I'm trying to remember his name, Colonel Ogden. He was a colonel of a New Jersey regiment in George Washington's army. Apparently, he was George Washington's favorite regimental commander. He's buried down there. A lot of Cedarville guys are buried down there, and that's where I'm starting to get off track. But go to these cemeteries. Go look for the stars. Look for the veterans plaques. Look for things. And if it's got the unit designation, it'll say 17th Illinois, it'll say 25th New Jersey, it'll say 114th Infantry Regiment, 28th Division, World War II. You type that stuff right in your phone, boom, 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 boom. And it brings you right to, you can find where these guys were. I had no idea that Cedarville boys would end up fighting in Western Tennessee or Mississippi or North Carolina or Suffolk, Virginia, or some of these guys even end up at Fort Blakely, Alabama, which is like near Mobile Bay. The cemeteries are where it's at. It's the only place you're going to find these guys. So I encourage anybody and everybody, if you drive by and got a couple minutes, go check it out. Go find somebody. Go find a story. It's there. It's waiting for you. That's how I found these guys. Somebody shared a photo with me. It was like, hey, you live in Cedarville, right? Fairton's right down the road. Boop, boop, boop. And I found them. They're all buried. Well, they're all buried right up the road. It's incredible. It's incredible what you find, and I encourage you to go and find your own Civil War story. If you, whether it's a stranger in a cemetery or Pop-Pop's old letters that you just happen to have. So, with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you for having me.
One more thing.
Yeah, questions?
Tell them the story about the Pangburn guy in Milton.
Okay, so I took my daughter to a birthday party at Skate 2000. And a guy, parents start talking, you don't want to skate or hurt yourself roller skating, so people start talking. I start talking to this guy named Bruce. Bruce is telling me, he's like, yeah, man, I got into history. I came to find out I have a relative who fought in the Civil War. And I was like, I love the Civil War. So he's like, yeah, he told me his name, he told me the guy's regiment. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this one, that one, this one, that one. And I said, oh, their greatest moment is the Battle of South Mountain. And he's like, I've been there. And I was like, me too. And so he tells me about how his ancestor, John Pankos, joins the 4th New Jersey Volunteers. He fights at Gaines Mill, gets captured, spends 40 days in prison in Virginia. The regiment is paraded through Richmond and is forced to march directly behind their flag being dragged through the streets while trash and rotten fruit and vegetables are being thrown at these men. All their equipment are taken from them. It's a horrible experience. So the 4th New Jersey, like I said, and this guy, John Pankos, go through Richmond. They're rejoined, they're exchanged. That's how prisoners were done back then. They were exchanged. The regiment is exchanged, rejoins the army. They're all called cowards because they didn't know what happened to them at Gaines Mill. All of a sudden, y'all boys just disappeared. What happened? I heard you surrendered. They got surrounded. And so at South Mountain, they're fighting for redemption. And I tell this guy the story. I said, oh, the men of the 4th, they're all ragtag. They're angry. They want to get back. And they lead the charge of the New Jersey Brigade up South Mountain. They take Crampton's Pass. They kick the ass of a bunch of Rebs. And it's their shining moment of the entire war. And John Pankos was there. This guy, Bruce's relative, was there. And he's like, I knew he was there. I don't really know a whole lot about him. He's like, so one day I just drove out there. I drove out to Burkittsville, Maryland, where the Battle of South Mountain took place. Or Boonesboro. wherever he was. He drove out to one of these towns, and he's like, you know, I'm looking for the stuff from my ancestor. I heard he was wounded at the Battle of South Mountain, and I'm just trying to like follow his trail. And he goes to an antique shop and starts talking to the guy, tells him what I just told you about the ancestor being wounded, looking for him. He goes, he's like, you know, this building was used as a hospital. He's like, yeah. He goes, yeah. He's like, I got this book. It's got everybody's name in it that was here. Check it out. Starts flipping through. John Pankos, 4th New Jersey volunteer, left arm amputated. Second room, second floor of the building that he's standing in. 18 years old. He's like, yeah, you came back? He's like, I hit the floor. I was like, I've had those moments where like, you feel like you're gonna faint, but also cry at the same time. Yeah, he had that moment, and he was like, I like had to go find where he was buried. I like, you know, you have like a spiritual moment finding these things, and it's incredible when you're standing there, you're holding these things, you're holding a letter, and you're standing in a spot where somebody fell or fought or whatever. Touch the monuments, touch the headstones. Those guys, when they put those monuments up in the 1880s, they were putting their hand up there to remember, you know, the Edgar Wilkinsons or the Benjamin Stockwells or the guys that were lost on these fields. That particularly Gettysburg, all the monuments are, or most of them. That's the connection. Is even though they're gone, you can't talk to them anymore. But you can go and stand them. You can go look up where these guys were. Charles Ogden, the guy from Illinois who fought at the Battle of Shiloh. Shiloh's a national military park, just like Gettysburg. You can go there, you can drive to the 17th Illinois Monument, you can find my podcast, No Pollution of Cowardice, South Jersey and the Civil War. Find the episode titled Eagle and the Rattlesnake and press play, and you can hear Charles Ogden's words on the Shiloh battlefield, and he talks about some crazy stuff happening. It's incredible. Yeah, go out and find the Civil War. It's everywhere. You'd be surprised where it's at. And with that, I'll take questions or comments or whatever else you got.
Floor's open. Anybody got a question or comment? Feel free to look at his stuff over there and talk.
Yeah, I'll stand over here and we can
But
talk
that is
about
how
that.
history is saved.
Yeah,
By chance.
yeah,
Guy goes into a antique store. He could have went into 30 antique stores
Yeah.
out there, but he went into the one that his relative had his arm amputated.
yeah. I think he was able to. The guy was like, "You want to go upstairs? If you want to go."
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go upstairs and stay where Pop got his arm taken off. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
and it's important to save our history and
Yep.
pass it on. See Masons here tonight and the younger generation.
Yeah, man.
Pass it on to them
Yeah,
so they can carry it on.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
thank you
absolutely.
very much. If you guys have anything you want to ask Dan. Oh yeah, everybody please sign in on the book there when you came in. And you're dismissed to do whatever.